Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Close-Ups, dedicated to Pittsburgh CLO's annual production of a musical Christmas carol, an episode we're calling The Three Scrooges. I'm Mark Fleischer, your host. CLO's A Musical Christmas Carol is a 28-year Pittsburgh holiday tradition, and it was one we were not going to let slip by in 2020. So, thanks to some amazing sponsors, which I'll have Sid put up on the screen, we have been able to partner with WQED here, and the show is being broadcast this December and streaming on WQED's website. So it is our gift to you this holiday season, so please grab some cocoa, your favorite Christmas cookies, and snuggle up to watch this classic tale filled with music and joy. On today's episode of Close-Ups, we will check in with Olivia O'Connor, manager of New Work Development, on an exciting new Pittsburgh CLO project premiering in January. And then for our main event, we will talk with three amazing world-class actors who have all played Ebenezer Scrooge in Christmas Carol at Pittsburgh CLO. Patrick Page, Richard Thomas, and Mark Jacoby. It promises to be a great conversation. Of course, it doesn't just have to be me asking the questions. If you want to be part of the conversation, if you have questions or thoughts of your own to share, please feel free to use the comments section. Now, CLO Close-Ups streams live on Facebook and YouTube, and you can also watch this episode and any of our past episodes by visiting the CLO Facebook page, YouTube channel, or the CLO website, pittsburghclo.org. And no matter how or when you catch our show, please like us, share us, make a comment, and tell your friends about us. Or you can send me an email. I want to know what you think about the show. You can suggest future topics, and I will answer any of your CLO questions. All right, now, let me welcome my colleague and co-host of CLO Close-Ups, Olivia O'Connor.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Of course, long time no see. It's good to see you.
Hi.
We see each other like this in Zoom meetings all the time. I think twice today already.
Yeah.
So you're here to unveil a project that we've been working on with some amazing songwriters, and I'm just going to let you share it because it's so exciting.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. And also, even though I'm here talking about this project, this was Mark's idea. So thank you, Mark, for finding this amazing way to connect and reconnect with artists from CLO's wide community. So it's a really exciting project. And, we're coming up to the end of the year. It's a very complicated end of the year. I think in a lot of ways, there's a sense of good riddance to 2020, understandably, but also in spite of, and in some cases, I think because of the pain of this year, there's also been a lot of growth and a lot to reflect on and think about as 2020 turns to 2021. And so to acknowledge that complication and to celebrate that complication, what better way than to commission artists to create something responding to it? So that's exactly what we did. And I'm really excited to be here today to announce some of the artists associated with Songs for a New Year. Thank you, Jason Robert Brown, for our title inspo. I'm sure we are not the first. Over the past several weeks, we have commissioned 5 writing teams to create original songs that in some way reflect on the turning of the year. You can see their names here. They're an amazing group of people. Many of them have worked with us before. And I should also say many of them have talked with us before on Close-Ups, on Spark the Conversation. Agreed. So when you see these names, I so encourage you to go back and check out those episodes to get to hear these artists talk about their work in their own words. We've got Megan Brown and Sarah Taylor Ellis, who you know from CLO, from These Girls Have Demons, which was featured in Spark 2018 and New Musicals Weekend 2019. Austin Dean Ashford and Brian Quijada. Austin is new to us. We're so excited to have him collaborating with Brian. And Brian is the writer and composer of Somewhere Over the Border, which was featured in New Musicals Weekend 2019. Matt Schatz, who's the writer and composer of Untitled, which was featured in Spark 2018 and will premiere next fall at the CLO Cabaret. Rona Siddiqui, who is the orchestrator of that world premiere production of Untitled, and Jillian Walker and Kassan Henry, who last collaborated with CLO on Skinfolk, an American show during Spark 2018. They're an amazing group of artists, and I only told you what they did with CLO because we're so proud to have worked with them, but they have amazing lists of credits, and you'll be able to check out their bios on our website soon. And we are so honored and excited to have them writing songs specifically for CLO. And these songs are just one part of this commission project. So in January, these songs are going to be released as video pieces. You'll see me back here talking with the artists as we release one new song each week. And those video pieces are going to come in all forms. So some artists are creating their own video components to these pieces. Some are working with commissioned choreographers to create original dance and movement pieces that are accompanied by these songs. Having listened to some of the rough demos already, I can say we are in for a really inspiring and really individual set of work from these artists. We're so excited, and really excited that a huge community of artists is going to be working on these. So in addition to the songwriters I just told you about, we're also going to have performers on some of these demos. We're going to have dancers in some of these videos and choreographers as well. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, but we wanted to share before we head into the holidays so that we have something to look forward to when we come back in January.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I appreciate the tease on this. We're going to be like our own MTV back when they showed videos. Yeah. But it's really great to finally have gotten to a point where we're investing in artists and having them create new work that's responding to the moment. And Olivia, I appreciate you running point on this and coordinating these artists. And I think it's going to be an exciting project. So and we can't wait to share it next year when you host all these weeks of song premieres.
Yes, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Thank you for having me on to talk about it.
Of course. Thanks for giving us the tease. All right, have fun with the Scrooges. Thanks so much. Well, generating these songs and anticipating seeing the work of CLO certainly gives me something to look forward to in 2021. But let's now turn to our main event, Pittsburgh CLO's A Musical Christmas Carol. This 29-year holiday tradition was adapted and directed by David Bell, who was my guest last episode. The show premiered at Pittsburgh CLO in 1992 at the Byham Theater in Pittsburgh's Cultural District. And the first actor to portray Scrooge for CLO was the legendary Broadway actor Edmund Lindeck, who was, you may know, the original Judge Turpin in Sweeney Todd. Ed played Scrooge for almost every year until 2007. After that, Pittsburgh's own Tom Atkins donned Scrooge's costume through 2016. And my three guests today have uttered the phrase "bah humbug" on our stage as CLO's three most recent Scrooges. Now, first, we're going to show some video of them so you can kind of remember. Was Patrick Page, a previous guest on the show, an actor with an incredible deep voice, as you hear. Patrick played Scrooge in 2016 and 17. And then this little show you may have heard of called Hadestown came calling, and he could not return in 2018. Then Richard Thomas stepped into the role. But the next year, Lincoln Center swept him away for The Great Society, in which he played Hubert Humphreys. And then finally, Mark Jacoby traveled around the Byham stage as Scrooge with the Ghosts. But it was a pandemic that kept him from away this year. But we're thrilled to have all three of these actors who have left indelible impressions on Pittsburgh audiences be here today as my guests. Let's welcome all three Scrooges, Patrick, Mark, and Richard. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing all right.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for taking some time. As we've been thinking about Scrooge and Christmas Carol, one of my joys in being a producer is getting to watch different people do different roles and learn from them and watch them. So I just want to have a conversation with the three of you about your approach in Scrooge. And I guess you can probably share some love of the company or your time here. But first of all, how are you doing? Patrick, I know you're in New York, right? You're hanging in there, doing okay?
I'm in New York. We have a beautiful snowstorm.
Yes, and a bit of a hiatus from your role as Hades, unfortunately, but we'll get you back on the stage soon. And Richard, you're also in New York, I remember, right?
Yep, and I love the snow too today.
Oh, good. And Mark was bragging about his New Jersey snow. How much did you get today?
I'm sorry?
How much snow did you get today? You said you got quite a bit as well.
In excess of 12 inches.
Oh, you guys have beaten us. We were about 9 inches here in Pittsburgh. So,
very proud of it.
So I just want to talk a bit about Scrooge. I was doing some research on the show, and it's amazing to me how many different actors have come up with playing this role of Scrooge, including, of course, Scrooge McDuck and Mr. Magoo. But of course, there's so many Michael Caine with the Muppets and all these other people that have played it. But had any of you played the role before of Scrooge before we invited you to Pittsburgh?
Not I.
No?
Nor I.
You had, right, Patrick?
Yes, I've done it a couple times.
Yeah.
I covered I covered Roger Daltrey at Madison Square Garden, I think about 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And I was standing by for Roger, and he became very ill around Thanksgiving. And so he really wasn't able to complete most of the run. So I had the wonderful glory. And, the Madison Square Garden Theater is 5,000 seats. So they gotten a special kind of dispensation from Actors Equity Association that they didn't actually have to stuff the programs with the little white sheet that says the role of Scrooge will be played by Patrick Page instead of Roger Daltrey. And so what would happen is they'd gotten a special permission that they could just make an announcement over the tannoy at the top. And so before every performance, I would hear the role of Scrooge, normally played by Roger Daltrey, would be played by Patrick Page, and then 5,000 people in unison booing. And I did that about 22, I did it 22 times.
Well,
keeping your ego in check.
I think that's why
that
they
would put you in the Scroogey mood.
Yeah, it did. It did.
So,
I was always told
I think it put the audience in a Scroogey mood too.
Mark, you were going to say something.
Well, as I understand it, Actors Equity gives producers the option of doing 2 out of 3 things: putting a sign in the lobby, putting an insert in the program, or making an announcement. And I always heard that the last thing a producer wants to do is make the announcement. They rush to get the sign up in the lobby and get the insert, rather than produce what Patrick was just describing.
Exactly, but if you have to stuff 5,000 programs, it's a different equation. So we got the announcement.
Oh, man.
I mean, we would do 4 shows a day sometimes, and Roger would pop back in for a Saturday night because, there'd be, Keith Richards or something was flying in from London. And so Roger would come back in and squeeze one out on a Saturday night, and then I'd do all the rest.
Well, we have someone who's told you guys when to go and when to stop. Heather Ankley's just put a quote about how much she likes you. She was our stage manager, of course, and she could probably tell us all sorts of great stories about you. But I guess my first question to you is, why is it this? I mean, this role's been adapted and done in film and done on stage. What is it about the role of Scrooge? Obviously, I called and asked each of you to do it, and you said yes, which I'm very grateful for. What for you was it about the role of Scrooge that made you want to, don the hat, the wig, the cane, the cash box? Anyone want to go first?
Well,
Answer your question.
Aside from the gorgeous language that Dickens gives us to speak, which is just so delicious and so wonderful to play. For me, it's a character that embodies 2 things that actors love to do: the darkest part of ourselves, and then the lightest and brightest part of ourselves. So you have both. You get to dip your toe in both waters, and that makes it very fulfilling for me.
Yeah. Anyone else have a insight, Patrick or Mark?
I feel like I have a history with it, as so many people do. It's probably the first Dickens I ever read, and it's probably the one that is most read, speaking, and best known. And as a kid, we had this album of 78 RPM audio version with Ronald Colman doing the role, which I listened to it wasn't even vinyl. It was that stuff before vinyl that breaks so easily. It's that old. And I listened to it every day almost, the same way that a lot of people listen to Oklahoma or, My Fair Lady. And it just became ingrained as part of my particular heritage, not uniquely mine, of course, but I felt like I've lived with it since I was a kid. So it's a magnificent opportunity, and all the various versions, seeing the different actors who have essayed the role, so inspiring in so many different ways that it's really kind of a dream come true to try to interpret it oneself.
Yeah. What, each of you are so unique and different, and I've talked about it with each of you, but what was it you wanted to bring to the role? I mean, it's sort of an interesting, again, we could talk arc, we could talk super objectives, a class in acting. One of the things that makes the show kind of unique, and Richard's talked about this in the past, that there's a company that sort of knows the show, and then a Scrooge kind of gets put into it. But I think it's always been to Scott and David's credit to allow the Scrooge to be the Scrooge that they are. Was there anything particular you wanted to bring to the role, or a message or anything like that? Or that you found over the course of the run, I guess, since it's 8 days of rehearsal?
If you got 8.
Yes. Go ahead, whoever.
I'm not really, I don't like to, for the most part, go on stage with the idea of delivering a message.
Right.
I mean, I sort of believe the message will be there if we're playing the truth of the situations, and so it's kind of result oriented,
right?
To say, I hope they get this, and the next thing you know, it starts to impact the way you're doing it, as opposed to just being true to it. So, I would say no. I don't hope they're going to come away with something specifically. But let's face it, the circumstances are so rich that it's a way to live itself without thinking in terms of a message.
Yeah. Anyone else? I mean, how you approach?
I had so many of these performances you're talking about in my head that I grew up watching, listening to recordings, all the different Scrooges and all the ones that I've seen in film. There were so many Scrooges clamoring in my head that first of all, I mean, it was great to be helped by the company for the blocking and all that, but I felt like I was also supported by all the previous performances that I'd heard that were there. And it actually took me a while to find Richard in the mix, but and I don't know if I ever actually did, but I felt I was holding hands with all these other Scrooges that I'd grown up watching, and they sort of got me over the line. I don't know how much of it was me and how much of it was them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's the fun. A lot of the fun of it. Two things really fun for me. One is the lack of rehearsal. I think is really fun. and I know. I mean, I would love to do 9 months of rehearsal for Othello. The way Stanislavski could, but I love that as well. But frankly, there's so much work that one can do on one's own. And if you work in television or film at all, you know that's what you do all the time, and you bring it in, and you expect everyone else to have done that as well. And so often, I think in the theater, we spend so much time sort of dithering about, and to go in to know I only have this amount of time, and therefore I have to be this prepared, and then I have to trust my instincts, and I have to go with my instinct. I can't second guess myself all the time. I found that very freeing. And the second time I did it for you guys, we were in Canada with Hadestown up through after Thanksgiving. So I actually wasn't able to get into Pittsburgh until we did our tech rehearsal on a Thursday. And that's when we had our first little audience. And I had gotten into the day before on Wednesday. Right. So David had set up the thing in advance in the rehearsal room. And we said, well, let's just run it. Not stop, not rehearse. I want to just run it like Actor's Nightmare. And we did.
Well,
I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it.
Wow, I am so impressed. It was kind of the Actor's Nightmare, right? Except rather than being naked, I was in Patrick's wardrobe. But
you had to fill the pants.
But it has some of the qualities of the Actor's Nightmare. Not knowing, not doing, and not knowing is actually one of the best places to start from. If you can handle the terror, I hear what you're saying. I don't think I have quite your fortitude, but I understand.
To be fair, it was Patrick's second year. He had done it once, so we sort of knew where they were.
I knew where to. I mean, it's amazing how much your body will remember. Yeah. I remember when I was doing Lion King on Broadway, I used to take these sort of 2 or 3 months hiatuses to go off and play something in Washington or in San Diego or something. And And I had just done one of those, and I came back, and I'd been away for 3 months, and the stage manager said, "Do you want to do a put-in?" And I said, "No, let's just do it. Let me do the show." And it was amazing, having not done a show for 3 months, and then to put on the costume and to go out and do the show. And it was so terrifying at first. And then I realized if I let my motor memory take over, if I just shut the conscious part of my brain and let my body do the part, it knew how. And that was a bit with Christmas Carol, because we do it so frequently, and it's such an intense couple of weeks, few weeks, where it kind of just takes over your life. It's all you do, for that period of time. You go and grab some greasy food, in between, and go try to get a nap and do a Christmas Carol again. And that's all you do. And that imprints on your body, I think. And you just remember.
I'm just amazed to hear that you did 4 performances a day at times at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and we did with the Grinch on Broadway too. We did 4 a day sometimes.
Until last year, doing Christmas Carol at CLO, I had never before in my career done a 3-show day.
Yeah, me neither.
And it was overwhelming.
Yes, I know.
And not
the only way I would kind of justify it to myself is to say it's like doing Hamlet on a 2-show day, and even then Hamlet's going to be more difficult. But doing Hamlet on a 2-show day is a 3-hour play. You do it twice, and so 4 of them on a 90-minute play is kind of the same thing.
So what was harder, multiple show days or a 10 a.m. matinee?
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Not for me. Multiple show days harder. Yeah. I don't mind the 10 a.m. personally, but
yeah.
But it's not just physically. I realized the first time we did a 3-show day that the idea of a 2-show day was all into my psyche, how it works, how you feel at the end of Act 1 of the first show, how you feel at the end of the first show. It's a psychology. How close am I to the to the end of the day? And that psychology has to be completely just rattled, because wait a minute, we've got another one. It took me a while to get into it psychologically, to say nothing of the physical.
Right. And what's really fun is, I'm sure you guys were all in the same dressing room, with these guys who've done this show for decades, and they've got their own shorthand and they've got their own jokes, and you kind of come in and they're very welcoming, but it's like it's a routine for them. Yeah. These people that have done the show for years, they've got it down. So the best thing you can do is ask them, okay, how do you do that? Because they know, they figured it out.
Right.
Yeah, I loved the collegial experience. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I just asked help from everybody, and it was just a wonderful feeling. And they are focused on you. They know it so well, and they're keeping an eye out for you. It's a wonderful feeling of support, and I love that they love coming back to do it again and again. And the collegial experience was really high for me on this, because the stakes were so high, the time and everything. It all combined to make it a wonderful feeling for the company. I was very grateful to them.
It was so great. Again, it's not to go back to individual performances, but I'm going to. But it was so funny because I know Patrick as a friend and colleague, and know that he's a jovial man in general, but he's known as this, the villain, that he's done from Spider-Man to the Grinch. But to watch your arc of the scariest man in town to the joy, I will never forget for your performance the first time you did the laugh, the chortle, just to see that side of you, Patrick. And then the other side for me on Richard, which is known as John Boy and the nice guy, to then come out and be I knew you would do the end. It was doing the sort of beginning of will he be the miser? And then from Mark, who I've noticed from doing the Pirate King, how many times with us? 3 times. That sort of finding that arc, as you said at the beginning, Richard, of sort of where you start and where you end up. I think that's probably, was that something that came probably, as you said, during the run for how you start and finish? Or did you know because you've read the novels, the prep?
Well, if you speak to my kids, you'll know that the dark side is not that far away from me as you might think. But no, the danger for me was there is so much relish in even his angry, unhappy side. I mean, there's so much delight he takes so much delight in being that awful person that it was difficult for me, because my sense of joy in the playing of it would take over, and I felt like, well, I got to dig deeper here, because I'm too happy being unhappy right now. So I had to kind of like, I had my meter, you know, right? My meter has, are you enjoying this a little too much? But anyway, the kids will tell you I can go very dark.
Well, I remember it was a few years back, probably, I don't know how many now, that Richard was playing Iago in Othello at the Old Globe, and I thought, oh, that's genius casting. That's absolutely genius. Well, because the whole thing about Iago is that he has to be the most trusted man in the whole play, in the world. The people literally call him Honest Iago, like you'd say, you know, one-legged Jim, or, you know.
I remember you were very helpful to me in our conversation about that before I went to do it, and I thought of you so often during the run.
Yeah, that's genius casting.
Did you know, one of the things that I laughed, you made a joke about wearing the costume, Richard, but was there a favorite costume piece or prop? Because I know for me, when I was an actor many, many years ago, it was stepping on stage and finally holding something or locking into something. Was there anything for the costume or a moment where you're like, oh, this is him, now I'm there, or something you like to carry, or, you know, and it's funny because those are all the same props no matter what year, but I do see them used slightly differently. Is there anything like that? For now, we're looking like, you know, the externals of the role. Was there any prop or costume piece or moment that you said that locks me in?
I was grateful for the walking stick, because it helped me get on stage at the entrance when I was quaking with terror the first few times. And I felt the comfort in that stick, putting it on the ground and feeling the strength of it, and helping me get out there. And once I was out there with it, I was fine. But it was probably the prop that was probably my biggest helpmate.
Yeah. Anyone else? Props, costumes?
The wig.
The wig.
I don't know if we all had similar hair.
No, you had your own. You had your own. Richard had a different one, and Patrick comes with his own wig. Just a secret that you should know.
Wow.
Are you wearing it now?
No.
I don't know. I don't normally like that stuff, just because it's one more thing to worry about and one more thing to do. But it was fun. It was fun to doll up that way, and really feel like and look to yourself like a different person.
Yeah.
For me, the mask of the character, the whole mask, the wig. I had a kind of pathetic realization in the first year. I was doing all of this age makeup on myself, and I realized, you know, it's a huge house. No one can tell the difference. Patrick, you're old enough. You're old enough. The second year, I didn't do any makeup. But it was a kind of Rubicon I had to cross of like, no, you're old enough for this.
You know, all of you have sort of classical training and background, and you've done lots of classics. In some ways, Scrooge has that. Was there anything in terms of, like, you know, uttering some of those words, you know, the bah humbug, or I joke, it's not totally the equivalent of to be or not to be, but as you said, Richard, and some of you have mentioned the sort of haunting of those other roles, but to say the words bah humbug, and there's a couple really great ones that I feel like David adapted. One of my favorites is after the ghosts have all appeared at the window and Marley disappears and all this hoopla happens, and then it's in the silence. Like, was uttering those phrases, or did it just feel so great on your tongue? I know, Mark, you said you listened to it as a child on the record, and Richard said he reads the novel. Was there anything about those lines?
Boiled him in his own pudding and with a steak of holly.
Yes.
I think that is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your line. Phrase like the humbug phrase, to me, they're little cursed pieces that it's not fun. It's the opposite of fun.
Right.
It's trying to make that into a living thing, as opposed to Scrooge McDuck.
Right.
To really get behind the meaning of humbug. This whole thing is nonsense. This whole thing that people do every year is a fiction, a humbug, a bunch of nonsense, a waste of time. And that the phrase bah humbug, I actually never said it. I always assumed that the word "ba" was Dickens trying to write out a noise, and that it's not a word that exists anywhere else, and that it doesn't exist. So it's just a noise. It's like humbug. This is humbug, as opposed to "bah humbug," which to me had a kind of a curse, kind of a stink on it.
Yeah. Other favorite lines? "Stick of holly in his heart" is one of my favorites as well. Richard and I were joking the other day about 5 coals, Mr. Cratchit. That's those, and so many others that came out, that were just sort of to anything that can taunt Jeff Howell, I'm good for. But were there other roles? I mean, obviously you'd heard, we talked about this a couple of days ago, a couple of you, but the idea that these lines that are in our zeitgeist, not just by humbug, but things that I was thinking about, Mark, as you talked about the record, did you even have to learn the script? I mean, because you probably had it in your,
the curse of that is those intonations, those particular, for lack of a better term, line readings are
they're deep.
Oh,
I had that with Albert Finney. I get that because I'd watched it so many times.
Yeah,
you get that northern accent out of my head that Albert Finney does in the musical version.
Yeah.
There were so many of those moments. So many of those lines are just like, partly because we're so familiar with them and we've had them in our heads so long, they just burst out. It's amazing how they seem ready to pounce.
My favorite lines were the ones I could remember, honestly. Because you're doing it all so fast and it's coming at you like a locomotive that there are certain parts that you actually know better than others. It's a very strange feeling to be in a play where you're getting to the next line, and I don't care how much you've studied it at home. It's just not as solid in you as it would be if you had 4 or 5 weeks of rehearsal. So you're always just on the verge of not knowing your words. And so the ones that you happen to know really in your bones are your favorites. It's completely random, but you just have to know that one very well.
It comes out louder and clearer.
Yes, with more conviction.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, just when they come to Scrooge's office, the charity.
Yeah.
Yes.
What shall we put you down for? Nothing. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone.
Yes, I love that. And
I love that.
I 100% agree, and I see Richard agreeing too. And I think I know why, which is Scrooge, in spite of being a great role, is a role in which you don't really get to act with other people very much. Spend an enormous amount of time watching, an enormous amount of time giving a phrase here or there, enormous amount of time on your own at the end of the show. But those times that are really a badminton game, a tennis game, back and forth with someone, where you have a little conflict, they're few and far between.
Yeah,
and that's one of them.
He is an observer through most of the show. Yeah,
I find there's almost a connection in the language for me. It's practically different, but I don't know if any of y'all played Richard III, but there's a similar sort of pleasure that the character takes in his own speech, in his own way of he likes the way he says what he says to people. There's that when he in Richard III when he says to Buckingham, "My mind is changed." It's the most wonderful, it's stake through the heart, and moments like that. And I kept thinking about that part from time to time playing it or preparing it, because there's a similar sort of he performs himself, Scrooge, a little bit. He knows what people think of him. He knows what people think of him. He knows what his image is, and he's playing that to the hilt. It's sort of he's actually performing himself sometimes. I think I know, or that's how it seemed to me.
Well, he's absolutely convinced that he's right. Yeah. And one of the things that was very helpful to me was watching a lot of videos of Ayn Rand, and to watch because he believes 100% in his philosophy, which is that if one takes care of oneself, no one's ever taken care of me, and I've managed to I've become a rich man. So if that works, then my philosophy works. And this whole idea of everybody being connected to everybody else's life is actually not the right way to live. And when you watch the videos of Ayn Rand, that's what Richard is talking about is there. There's this little smile back behind the smile, this little pleasure in saying to Mike Wallace, that yes, I do believe in selfishness. Yes, I do believe altruism is a terrible thing. I believe one should take care of oneself. And you can see Margaret Thatcher doing the same thing frequently. So to really embrace that philosophy, to really get behind it and believe in it, for me was important. So that's where the pleasure came from.
That's a great point. That's great.
Yeah, not from being disliked, although I do think there's pleasure in that, in the sense that he's turned his fear of being disliked into a kind of a superpower for himself. But it's that his absolute belief that he's right.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's those exchanges with Fred that I find, the what right have you to be happy you're poor enough? What right have you to be sad you're rich enough? In The Party, there's that line that when you're observing about Scrooge hangs on to this cynicism, I'm not getting it right, because he thinks it's the only thing that makes him distinct and individual, when he's the one that really suffers because of it. And to me and again, I'd be interested to know where the sort of journey, it really is that Fred party. I want to stay, I want to play the games, I want to laugh, that sort of change that then goes into the darkness as you go through. So like I said, it's very interesting to hear you guys all refer to classical works and, Dickens. And I know Mark played Sykes for us before. Patrick has played Fagin for us before. Like I said, Patrick made a joke. I only hire him for Dickensian villains.
No, it's more specialized than that. Dickensian misers.
Misers, there you go. Right. We didn't use the same wig as Fagin for you, because I think we even have a picture of you from Fagin somewhere. Oh, there he is.
But once again, that's my own wig and my own beard.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I love it. Oh, Patrick, that's wonderful.
It's just old-fashioned thing. And I'm sure you guys had it too. I know Richard was a big star by this time, but when I was a kid, you had a big tackle box full of makeup that you took with you everywhere that had noses and beards, and I never got over that. I always loved that aspect of the craft.
It's wonderful. It's great. I got a box with a few of them still left.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of that ritual
somewhere.
It's sort of the ritual that Mark was talking about, of putting on the wig and stuff.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mark.
What happened to that?
Film and television, and I'm afraid this terrifying notion that one has to be the role that you're enacting.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, acting has always been I always wanted to play as many different kinds of things as I could. That was the attraction of doing Fagin. I think I was in my early 40s when I did that for you,
Yeah.
And so that's always been because my God, when I was a little boy, was Olivier. And that was the thing about Olivier's work, was the transformational nature of it.
Right.
Yes.
So just a little bit as on the sort of the state of the world and where we are, I've had a couple people, you all have three men have such distinguished careers and training. I've talked to a lot of students lately, and a lot of them are sort of like, what do we do now? How do we move forward in this era? You've all talked about shows. Are you seeing, Patrick, I know you teach a lot. What advice are you giving students as they're in this era of sort of a merry-go-round? I'll give you an example. and Patrick has taught some for us on a video call, but we have students who are saying, I'm getting tired of Zoom classes. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. What's our craft? Should I just give up and go to television? Should I change? Like, what are you guys hearing? And what advice would you give to this poor generation that's sitting on, at Pace and at NYU and Michigan, sort of in hold? Are you hearing from, you're all mentors in your own way. What are you hearing, or what advice would you give?
It'll pass. It's not a whole generation. It's a couple of years, and it's rough and difficult. But we've had the plague and the Puritans, and here we are. So they can, when there's no more Zoom, when they pull all the plugs and the grid goes down, people will get up on a flatbed and act. So eventually, it'll all just I don't know, brush up your Shakespeare, whatever you got to do on your own. Acting around the house is difficult on the family, so you have to be very careful.
Yeah. Are you keeping your crafts up? Are you doing monologues? What are you gentlemen doing? Are you learning how to cook bread? What do you? I mean, I know.
I'm in class.
I mean, one of the things that I say to my students is, not to be too grand about it, but in being an artist, the part where you display what you have is really a not the consequential part. Leonard Cohen said, poetry is the ashes of a life well lived. So the poem is simply the end result of having lived through something, observed it very carefully, and then being able to express it. And that's the same with acting. So what I've been saying to them is, take this as your time to be taking things in, to be listening to better music, to be watching better films, to be reading better books. Use this as your intake time, because you're gonna have the giving time. It's gonna come back. I know it seems like forever, but it'll, as Richard said, it will pass. It will come back. But the blessing of being able to pause and to take things in, I think we can overlook.
Right.
I think it's interesting, though, the way that this has impacted psychologically different people, somewhat according to where they are in the arc of their life. I have a son in his early 30s who's an actor and was doing just great.
Right.
And I look at him and I think his best years, he's ready to go. And it just all of a sudden nothing. And then I look at myself and I must admit, will it come back in time for me to be able to do anything? I'm looking at the end of me, and the end of the pandemic might exactly coincide. So it's just, I find that interesting. Now, of course, Richard is right. And we have vaccines now, and it is going to come to the end, and there will be theater, and there will be things to do. And as Patrick says, there's all kinds of ways to nurture yourself in this time. But still, it's just interesting to me how it impacts different people according to their
I think that's a really good point. When it's taking up, it's taking up a fraction of my life in terms of how many years I've lived. But for these young people, it's taking up a much larger percentage of their lived life. 2 years seems like an eternity when you're 18.
Yeah, I know. I mean, watching
very true.
Watching the CMU students that I know in places, just hearing that. And it's interesting, Mark, because you touched on the idea of your son and watching from another place. And I know both Richard and Patrick, you had performer parents and that watching that, but that idea of the generational ability. I was also reminding someone that there's a reason we had the Roaring 20s. It came after the pandemic of the influenza. Yeah. So there will be this. And, but I do think it's been an interesting time to think back on things as we go forward. I know some of you are looking ahead. I know, Richard, you talked about you have an Ozark thing coming up that you're going to get to go live in Atlanta. And Patrick, you made an announcement.
Are you doing Ozark, Richard?
Yeah. I'm going to do next season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I love that show. I can't wait to see you on it. I'm so okay. I'll write you. I got to find out when that's starting to air again.
Okay. I don't know.
I'm desperate. I'm desperate for it to start airing again.
What's doing with To Kill a Mockingbird? Is that?
Yeah, well, you talk about the days, they'll push it back. I'll be in a walker by the time I can play it.
Right, because you're supposed to go out with that, and Patrick, Hades coming up, and we're going to get Mark back here before you know it. And then Patrick, you just, and I know some of you have been working, right? Like Patrick, you did a Stella Scrooge, which was different. I know, Richard, you said you went up to Canada, finished some things, so you are finding light. There is light, as we go forward.
People are working, and we're shooting a series right now for HBO called The Gilded Age, which is being shot under pandemic conditions. I'm not on set right now, but I will be soon again. And it's you have to get tested every day. You go in, you get a test. It's everything's locked down. Everybody's separate. You don't have The makeup room is different. The clothes are handled differently. Everything's handled. There's no buffet lunch anymore, which was the best thing about television.
No craft services, right? Is that right? Everybody likes. Well, that's good. And I guess my last question for now is: do you guys all like Christmas? Are you Christmas fans? Was it? do you celebrate in a big way, or do you have? I'm sure Mark has a train set he puts out.
How did you know that?
It's all over Google, Mark. No.
Christmas is a big deal.
Is it? And again, we're approaching a time, obviously, with, it'll be Holly and me together, and we'll be obviously it's different than being in Texas with my family, but, I know are you finding ways to put tradition back in your life as we come to next week, which, as I said, I can't believe it's already Christmas next week. So as we go
that's
through.
my favorite time of year, which is one reason it was so exciting to do, Christmas Carol. Yeah, I love it. I've loved it since I was a child, and I've driven my family crazy with it over the years. And I'm sure that some of them have a reaction formation because of it, but I can't help it. I just love it.
The drawing in a little bit. I'm kind of not hating it. Mm-hmm. It's a little more focused. It's a little less extravagant. I'm not talking about money.
Right. No. But
the experience,
the hoopla,
I find that interesting and kind of fun for a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I are having been very cozy, actually, much more than usual, and it's nice.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, it's funny that we've been talking a lot in the staff, and it's been a challenging year, but in some ways there's been so many great victories and so many great moments to sort of slow down and think. And as Patrick was saying, whether it's watching series I never got to see, or read a novel that I never got to read, but even just getting to know some of our staff in a different way. In some ways, we're tighter and more connected than we were when we were in the same office, but which is also interesting because I miss, we had a small cast party of some of the Christmas Carol people of the other company the other day, and it was just bittersweet for me because I was like, I love seeing their faces, but was also sad and I wasn't in the room, so it's an interesting give and take as we're going there. Well, speaking of that, because you all have said about that, I want to throw a couple surprises at you today because I want to hear what people thought about you. So our first guest I'm bringing back surprise is Allison Cahill, who was, there she is, who for two of you was your Ghost of Christmas Past, and for Mark was Mrs. Dilber, because we made some role changes. So, Allison, thanks for joining us. We wanted to have a little bit of fun with some of your company members, because these gentlemen have all talked so fondly of you. What are your memories of these three men you've worked opposite? That's where I want to hear what they have to say. Are you with us, Allison? Oh, I think you're muted. You got it? It's our first Zoom meeting. There she is.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. I've been thinking a lot about it and how wonderfully different each of you was to work with. And especially Christmas Past, because we don't have a lot of interaction, but there is such a rich relationship going on. And depending on how you approach Scrooge, our relationship, Scrooge and Past, was very different, and it was just so exciting. And one of the things I liked about playing that role was that I got to walk through each surprise, each every opened memory with you as it happened. It was a great exercise in really staying in the moment, especially when I didn't have a lot to say, and people may not have been aware, but there were glances and eye contact constantly throughout the production that were really valuable to me and just made it very special.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I love watching in those middle scenes of everyone is the play not say. Those moments that are nonverbal that you guys, and each of them being sort of different as they went through. So, well, we're glad to have you with us, Allison. But no visit would be complete without the Stetler and Waldorf of your dressing rooms. Let's have Tim and Jeff are here to join you.
Oh,
I know someone referenced this. Oh, look who it is.
Hi, boys. You boys are pretty. Pretty. Good to see you.
One of the things that happens for those who are watching is probably the ultimate hazing, which is that we make these mini Scrooge have to be in a dressing room with Tim Hartman and Jeff Howell.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're sorry.
And we have to listen to it next door.
Guys, you told me that what happened in that dressing room stays in that.
I told them it'd be family friendly
Oh.
discussion, but as I think you guys talked about, each of you are Scrooges has said, this company that has done the show, Tim, you did it every year, but maybe one, right? And you've played at least, how many different roles have you played before we finally just settled with you and Fezziwig to hit your leg? Seven roles. Yeah. And then Bob Cratchit, of course, you are the original. And apparently in retirement, you've forgotten what mute means.
He's muted too.
He's muted too. Hey, Howell.
There we go.
Darn, there he is.
I kind of liked mute better.
I know Tim's Mrs. Dilber though. That first year was.
I was fantastic as Dilbert.
Oh yes, you guys love these.
Now, imagine that at 9:30 a.m. on a Thursday.
I believe I was told once that Patrick asked him what he had to do to get his own dressing room. And I can understand that.
Yeah,
It sounds like me, but I don't remember doing that. But it certainly sounds like me.
You were high on Red Bull. You were
Honestly,
high on Red Bull. Yeah.
Honestly, I feel
Red
bad
Bull,
for the
yeah.
Scrooges.
Lots
On
and
one
lots.
respect, they're thrown into it, right? They're absolutely thrown into it. And so you have to live with us because we'd go crazy after 25 or 26 years if we didn't have fun doing it. So you're stuck with that, and I feel bad.
Don't feel
But-
bad. It made it so much fun.
Good.
Well, when Mark was saying, honestly, what I remember is the mornings, because when Mark was saying, that he was okay with the 10 a.m. show, I tried recently to do. They wanted to film something like of me, like actually acting, like not like a little scene on a guest thing, but like a real me doing some Shakespeare at like 11 a.m. And I tried, and I was just awful. I can't act before, like, there's something after your body, if your body's set after so long, after 30, 40 years, to say you're not going to do this before 2 p.m. I'm sorry, it won't happen.
You should have called us. You should have called us.
Terrifying mornings with these two, like they're like the Muppets, and there you are in this dressing room. One of them is a cartoonist, and the other one is might as well be a cartoonist. They're both they're like some great duo comedy act. But
Sadly, we're interchangeable.
I am not awake. I'm not awake yet.
Yes.
I know there are
And that's
I know there's some bootleg tapes somewhere. I just hope they get released from YouTube. I really do.
how much would it take to keep them quiet?
That dressing room, I swear. So Jeff Howe, you as the Cratchit.
Yeah.
Who was your scariest Scrooge? Who actually scared you?
Patrick. Yeah. For that 10 a.m. reason. We saw that in your eyes. We heard it in your voice. And then we went, yeah, okay, we don't care. And then we
I
just
didn't
went our
have trouble
business.
summoning the crotchetiness at that hour.
Yeah.
Natural.
Natural.
But the thing I looked forward to with all three of you was hearing the line, a day like any other, except for the thievery and opportunism which is perpetrated by the mawkish excesses of the irresponsible. If you could get that out at 10 a.m., we were like, yes, it's going to be a good day.
Brutal. None of us named that as a favorite line.
Well, I think it's a
This
David Bell
confirms-
line, which also means that you don't have anybody else's voice in your head.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Right.
so true. It's so true. But this confirms what I suspected all along, that you guys still know Scrooge better than I do. After everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, remember, Richard, put on your mean face, Richard. Put on your mean face.
Yeah, I can't.
Come on, you can do it.
I can't imagine what it was like for each of you to walk in that room on the first day and see these two guys. Not to mention them, but the entire company. Who's, like I said, Richard's been very kind about them pushing and shoving with love, and the rest of you as well. But
what would have been more horrible than to be alone in a dressing room preparing to do that after 8 days of rehearsal? I mean, the terror and the solitude together would have been too much for me. It was wonderful to be, in the lap of, insanity, and not alone.
The first year we did it, Edmund was, we were running lines with him at intermission, for the whole run. We would run lines with him just because he had that, as you all know, that the 4-page monologue, redemption. It was just like, it did just go on and on and on. And so, yeah, we would be there with him and he would be just like petrified. So I'm ruined. My career's over. Yeah.
I had to play Pittsburgh. I played Pittsburgh.
I walked into the dressing room the first day, and of course Tim and Jeff were there, and they looked at me rather blandly and pointed to a chair in the corner and said, "We put you over there." Welcome to the dressing room.
We put you over there.
At least it wasn't McCrae. We put him at the sink.
Yeah.
That's
and
all right.
Krell's in the corner behind the costumes.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, look, part of why I wanted this together was this energy, because I have to say I've missed it. Yes, the stage is part of it, but I know seeing what happens backstage and the liveliness that we've all missed, whether it was at the pub or whether, the sort of ability to be together and create this story. And to have seen 3 different Scrooges, or 4, I guess, in my time. I was here when Tom was doing the role. But that idea of what it brings and the liveliness to it, because in some ways, I think for you guys, Allison, Tim, and Jeff, having a new Scrooge gets it sort of a little newness, a little something different, or someone else to pick on. I'm not sure which is more important to you. So
a little both.
Yeah. But no, I always felt terribly guilty that I couldn't be more congenial, that I couldn't go out and do things. I don't know about anybody else. I only had energy to do the show. Yeah, I didn't have energy to even frankly a lot of times to be as congenial as one wanted to be, even backstage. Like, do you just, for me, it's just like head down, get through this because I've got 3 of them today, or whatever it is.
Right.
And I was always grateful for people's understanding of that. And that we're kind of all in this together, and that it's a big carry, and like Allison was saying, I would take the moments with her in those scenes. For me, the kind of glances, the looks between, they were like in a race, when the hand in a marathon, where they hand a runner a bottle of water, every little look was just like a little bit of sustenance, a little bit of like reality. I'm like, I'm here with you. We're in the same imaginary world. I'm not taking it easier than you are.
Right.
We're both giving our all to this.
Yes, that's very true. I had the same experience.
Enormously important.
Yeah, for me as well.
And there's the great thing about those of us who have done it for so long. There's something that is wonderful about playing with you guys, in that you all bring something different. Plus, for every performance, you would bring something different.
Right.
And there is that dynamic is a joy for us who have done it for so long and are constantly looking for something real and new to hold on to.
Right.
Like a line we haven't heard,
I'm sure you heard many. Or looking for a line you expected to be there that was nowhere to be heard that night.
Well, I will say, one of the things I have to say is the company, of course, loves it and has a good time. But I have to say to Jeff and Allison and Tim, you're such caretakers of the show as well. For you guys to do it for 20 plus years, but to still believe in what it offers the community and the 7,000 school children that do show up at 10 a.m. and scream and yell as the lights go out and find their way in. Because like I said, one of the things I am proud as I look back on the 29 years, that how many kids, now adults, how many years later, say their first show ever was Christmas Carol at the Biome. And I take that as a very important responsibility. And, that was one of the challenges we had this year. And I think the ability to stream it to classrooms and things like that was very important, because, it is a gift that you're all giving of theater. And because it has the language it has, and it is Dickensian, and it's not, some piece of fluff, there is darkness, there is light. I think says a lot. So you guys, you're caretaking not just of the Scrooges that put them in the right place, but of the show itself. You've never wanted to make it something it's not. And that's something I've watched. Even if you are joking backstage, I know that it never shows up on the stage itself. And for that, I'm very thankful. So
thank you. We love the show. I mean, it's the gem that we've felt like caretakers for.
Yeah.
Right.
We had to keep it going. And plus, I just got to deal with kids. I got to be crazy and, be a kid again. And so I just got to laugh my way through the day. Yeah, that's it. I just get to laugh my way through the day.
Well, that's also because how many minutes do you actually spend on stage, Jeff?
You've whole 17 and a half
minutes.
Wow. That's your time on stage.
That was my time.
I didn't know that. That infuriates me.
Yeah.
We've overpaid you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We've overpaid you, Jeff. So, gentlemen.
Although in Hadestown, you were there not very long. I mean, Hadestown, you were sitting there for like forever.
Yes, I sit there for the first half hour. That's I've tried to get that out of my contract, but it's still there. They like it enough.
Well, gentlemen and lady, I just thank you for some laughter and some time in this holidays, and for the Three Scrooges, whether you're Mo, Larry, Shep, Curly, whichever one you are. I just want to thank you for giving the gifts you have to Pittsburgh in terms of the shows and putting up with Tim and Jeff, which probably owes a bonus at some point. And I wish you all a very happy holidays. Thank you for this. And I cannot wait to be in either a rehearsal room or in an audience, seeing every one of you back on stage, remembering your lines. So thank you all so much. Have a very Merry Christmas, all of you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for the time.
You guys.
Happy
Christmas time.
Bye. Wow, what a great way to spend the evening. I hope you were okay with some of the inside jokes, but as you can see, they're incredibly close. And to have that level of commitment in town in Pittsburgh is truly such a blessing. And I have to say, Christmas Carol every year means so much to me to see it. So I hope you've enjoyed these behind the scene conversations and stories. And we do miss having a Christmas Carol and live at the Biome, but we're so thankful to WQED for partnering with us to broadcast the show, and the sponsors that made it possible to provide the community with this event, so that there's some, shall we say, normalcy in this holiday season. All of us at Pittsburgh CLO hope you enjoy the show and enjoyed this conversation. Before I go, I do want to thank our guests for being with us today and being such good sports. And a shout out to our behind the scenes dream team of Becca and Sid. Happy holidays. Thank you guys for everything this year, getting a show off the ground. Plus, I have to thank Steph, who creates our graphics. And our theme music was composed by Adam Overett. So this is our final episode of 2020. Who would have thought when we first started streaming with an interview of Clay Aiken on April 9th that we would end 2020 with 27 episodes? Look, I want to thank our guests throughout the entire year, the incredible artists who I know are weathering this pandemic storm with lost employment and looking at the future to hopefully be on stage soon. And I cannot wait to see every one of them on stage and appreciate the time they spent with us on Close-Ups. And of course, I want to thank all of you for watching and sending your appreciation of the show to me. It has been a labor of love and meant so much for all of us who have been producing the show to stay connected with you, our audience, and our artists. And I want to take a moment, personally, if I may, to thank the CLO Board of Directors for their support this year in 2020, the donors who voiced their support of musical theater and its future through their generosity. And finally, I must thank the CLO staff, who throughout 2020 have found innovative ways to keep the CLO mission thriving serving students, connecting with audience members, and managing resources so that we can ensure resiliency for the future. I count myself incredibly lucky to work with these amazing people who every day demonstrate an indelible commitment to CLO and the people of Pittsburgh. I wish each of my staff members that I work with a very happy holiday. I cannot wait to work by your side in 21 and raise the curtain on our 75th anniversary season. We usually leave you each week with a Throwback Thursday video of a past production. But as we say goodbye to 2020 and anticipating the holidays and the arrival of 2021, we want to leave you with a bit of holiday cheer from the cast of A Musical Christmas Carol and a wonderful video they have created specially for this occasion. So until we meet again, I'm Mark Fleischer, hoping that during these challenging times, you're able to be up close with someone you love. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a very happy New Year. Goodbye.
Oh, there's no place like home for the holidays, 'cause no matter how far away you roam, when you pine for the sunshine of a friendly gaze, for the holidays you can't be home, sweet home. I met a man who lives in Tennessee, and he was heading for Pennsylvania and some homemade pumpkin pie. Some pumpkin pie. Pennsylvania folks are traveling down to D.C. sunny shore. From Atlantic to Pacific, gee, the traffic is terrific. Oh, there's no place like home for the holidays, 'cause no matter how far away you roam, if you want to be happy in a million ways, for the holidays you can't be home, sweet home. Oh, there's no place like home for the holidays, 'cause no matter how far away you roam, when you part